I questioned my taste in Yu-Gi-Oh cards in my last deck profile, mostly because I should have clocked that Meklords are aesthetically and pretty damn good competitively, but today I know I have good taste because we took Burning Abyss to the top, baby. Something about sending your opponent to hell is a very attractive concept to me, and I'm not talking about 12 staple traps kind of hell. I mean literal, actual underworld. And we even got someone to show you around. But I'm the tour guide of this video, damn it, and just like always, I'll be going over my exact build, the individual cards, and how I played it to get that king of games. What does every good archetype need? If you said an equip spell, stay after class and talk to me, okay? If you said a searcher, you are 100% correct. And while Skarm, Malbranch of the Burning Abyss, is a slow searcher, he's still what you need. Our first look into these hellish creatures, and I'm sorry, but the Burning Abyss artwork is some of the best going in Yu-Gi-Oh! In my delicate eyes anyway. And Skarm is no exception. So before I go over his effects, I feel like I can make this video easier for players not familiar with the archetype. So their names. It looks like they all have a mile-long title, but it's just a forename followed by Malbranch of the Burning Abyss. So you learn the only difference between Barbar and Alich is their first names. Well, and Barbar's got more wedge. But I'm bringing this up because this is kind of how their effects work too. All Burning Abyss monsters have the same ability to special summon themselves from the hand if you control no spells or traps. They all also have the effect to destroy themselves if you control a monster that is not a Burning Abyss monster. And then they all have an effect when they're sent to the graveyard except for Rubik because he's a tuner and he thinks he's special. So what I'm saying is all these cards are exactly the same except they have different first names and different effects when they go to the graveyard. But also keep this in mind, Burning Abyss monsters share a hard once per turn between their special summon and their graveyard effect. So every BA you summon on your turn with their own effect, you cannot use their graveyard effect that turn, and vice versa. I hope that helps with the video going forward. So Skarm, if he's in your graveyard during the end phase because he was sent there that turn, you can add a dark level 3 fiend monster from your deck to your hand except another copy of Skarm. So any Burning Abyss monster, or more commonly, Tour Guide of the Underworld. Skarm is very important for setting up a comeback as this deck does play slow. It is able to gain its resources slowly while whittling down your opponent, and Skarm is a phenomenal facilitator of its playstyle. Skarm is one of the only Burning Abyss monsters that we regularly normal summon, because we do want his search. I'm running Skarm at 3 copies for sure. He's the most problematic main deck BA, being a main box ultra rare, but thankfully does come in the same box alongside Dante, Sir, and Virgil. And speaking of Sir, this boy is limited to 3 alongside a lot of other problematic interactions because he is probably, arguably, the best main deck Burning Abyss monster we got. When he's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Burning Abyss monster from your graveyard, except another Sir. This does include Dante. Sir is like a 1-card recycling machine, as he's pulling BAs out of the graveyard where they will inevitably go again and use their effects once more, since you are special summoning them in a way that's different from their inherent special summon effect they all have. Running him at 2 because of his restriction. Just put respect on him now. He's got fists bigger than his own head. So if you want to sin a whole bunch and find out, he's there waiting. Farfa, baby. Probably the most notorious card of the deck. When Farfa is sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 monster on the field until the end phase. Face up, face down, yours, your opponent, doesn't matter. Doesn't seem too impactful. Like, bruh, you're gonna Malev Sin me with a 1000 attack side man that's not even on the field? Yeah, it's funny until it becomes a quick effect, and when you do your history homework on the Plana. On your turn, you could bait a Photon Lord with this effect, or a Zeta from Rose Dragon. I'm running Farfa at 1 because he is also limited to 3, and Sir can recycle Farfa's effect, so that ratio is optimal in my opinion, which is actually contrary to what I said when this nerf was first announced. Next up, Alich. Alich negates a face-up monster's effect until the end phase when sent to grave. This one takes some timing if trying to operate manually on your opponent's turn. You don't want to chain a card that sends Alich to the graveyard in response to a monster effect, because your card will resolve and then the monster effect, and then Alich gets the option to activate his effect. On your turn, it's a lot easier to use. It's a good way to bait out Photon Lord or Zeta just like Farfa, and I found Alich to be consistently useful against Elemental Hero Sunrise on my turn, lowering its attack to Beatrice and Dante's level while also preventing his pop in the battle phase. Running Alich at 3 copies, I consider him to be the last of the genuinely good main deck Burning Abyss monsters that we have. Libitch, to me, is as mid as the whole thing gets. I kinda like Sir, just not as versatile or useful. When sent to grave, it can special summon a BA from your hand and negate its effects, because now that BA monster will not destroy itself if you control a non-BA. Thing is, it's just not a setup that can consistently be built upon. If anything, I used Libitch as a defensive card in desperate situations, summoning a BA like Sir from the hand to defend, and then Sir will float into something else. And like, don't get me wrong, he can still facilitate combos, just nothing extraordinary, and his artwork is just lacking in comparison. You just look unpleasant, mate. Like, keep your phone on in the movie theater type of unpleasant. Running at 2 copies is just so mid, but this does give me an opportunity to explain why we run bad Burning Abyss monsters. It's because they still special summon themselves and can all be a material for Dante, making none of them technically bricks. But opening Skarm is better than opening Alich going first as an example, so small little nuances like that. Barbar is kind of bad, but I want to put a big asterisk next to that because he's one of my favorite Burning Abyss monsters going, and he won me around 10 games with effect damage. I'm not making that up. When Barbar is sent to grave, you can banish up to 3 other BA monsters in your graveyard to inflict 150 points of damage to your opponent for each banish, clocking in at 450 every time if you banish the maximum. We run Barbar because he can special summon himself, but also because he's an insanely cheeky game ender. Very few players, especially Destiny draw players, don't think about this. Running it too seriously, I meant around 10 games in the climb ended because of Barbar's effect damage. He may be a sideman Malbranch, but he's got a frontman's poise and the potential to be the game's MVP. Rubik does nothing when sent to grave. He's just the tuner that can special summon himself, but he does have a booty of 2100, so no disrespect, running it 2 copies. Fiendish Rhino Warrior, let's go. I've shared my hype for this card in the past at the hopes of making a Burning Abyss Block Dragon deck. It didn't work. But Fiendish Rhino Warrior certainly works with the Underworld fellas. Level 3 Earth Fiend, he prevents Fiend type monsters you control from being destroyed by battle or card effect except himself. And it's just a passive effect while he's on the field. So, the Burning Abyss monsters will not destroy themselves while Rhino is on the field, despite him not being a Burning Abyss monster. And if that wasn't good enough of a supporting effect, on a hard once per turn, when Rhino is sent to the graveyard, you can send any Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard except another Rhino. In other words, use whatever BA effect you want. In more ways than one, this is arguably the best non-archetypal support card BA has in the game. And something about the color of that blade tells me this is not a man to mess with. Running it 3 copies for sure. Alright, we're here, and if I'm being honest, Tour Guide to the Underworld is one of my favorite cards. Again, there's something so beautifully cheeky about literally welcoming someone into hell with a smile on your face, but it makes perfect sense too. If the guide to the Underworld was Libitch, no one's going. Tour Guide is the moneymaker, and she's the moneymaker for this deck too. When she's normal summoned, you can special summon a level 3 Fiend from your deck and negate its effects. She can't be used as a synchro material, and she is currently limited to 1. Arguably the most powerful card in the deck, she's a 1-card Dante that also sets up graveyard effects. You can even summon Fiendish Rhino Warrior with her effect, and then you can exceed into Dante, detach a material, send with Fiendish Rhino Warrior, there you go. All from 1 card, she's insane. And by extension, she's the worst card that you can mill with Dante, and the best card that you can search with Skarm. She's a comeback card too, she can come in clutch in tight spots being a 1-card combo, or just a bite back on turn 3. I usually try to save my Tour Guide if I open her because her effect is that valuable in the later game, but don't be scared to use her for your turn 1 combos if necessary. She comes in a gem bundle deal with 15 packs of the latest box, so pretty nice card in terms of obtaining it. And of course, because she's negating effects, the Burning Abyss monsters that she summons will not blow themselves up, despite the fact that she isn't Burning Abyss either. Okay, we just got 3 more main deck monsters to go over, 2 staples and 1 tech, and then we'll hit up this fabled extra deck, baby. Blackluster Soldier Envoy Envoy the Beginning provides a service to Burning Abyss that they really need, a big ol' beater. Your max attack points in this deck is 2,500 outside of running some unusual things. That's less than Rose Dragon's Yazi, Neos Knight, and Brave Neos. It's a tie with Weisel, and it's less than the Photon package. Envoy is one of two ways BA can deal with Yazi, an untargetable monster. Envoy can be summoned by banishing a light and dark monster, then he has two effects, but you can only use one of them once per turn. Either he has a banish of a monster outright, or if he destroys a monster by battle, he can attack again. So like I was saying with Tour Guide and Bite Back, if Envoy is part of the equation, that Bite Back can usually win you the game. Kind of a Brit going first, but if you open him, it's very likely you will summon him eventually. I did try running him at 3 copies, but I found that to be too bricky. I found 2 copies to be optimal. It's a replacement for Chaos Dragon Levianeer, who cannot be run alongside Farfa and Sur, also being limited to 3. And Envoy the Beginning is nowhere near as good as Levy, don't get me wrong, but the idea is kind of the same. You need a front man, you need an intimidator, you need muscle. And while Barbar is present, we need a little more muscle, and that's what BLS is charging us for, $250 an hour. White Princess is dumb, broken, not a fan, limit it to 2, but man, it's so good in Burning Abyss. White Princess is a hand trap that can use its effect from the field or the hand. It can tribute itself to reduce the attack of all monsters currently on the field by their level times 300. So for example, a level 3 monster with 900 attack would go down to 0, and a level 8 monster with 3000 attack would go down to 600. This card is extremely versatile. Obviously you can use it defensively to prevent lethal, but since it only reduces the attack of monsters that are on the field at its activation, you could just use it at the beginning of your turn, make all of your opponent's monsters weak as hell, and then you start your combos and lethal later. Paired with BLS, it's amazing, and it's another way to deal with Yazi since Princess doesn't target. Because of Princess, a roided up Dante and Beatrice's 2500 attack points is looking a lot better, and it's a light monster, so alongside Dante and Beatrice, it acts as one of the light materials for BLS. Another reason it pairs with the card so well. Not to mention, Dante gains attack off of his effect, and at a rank 3, he's still at 1600 under a White Princess, which can beat over most other things under a White Princess. I can tell you, it's very satisfying to drop this card on a full hero board and then start showing them the power of hell. DD Crow is a meta-breaking card right now. It was able to win me some games by itself, typically by banishing Elemental Hero Neos from the graveyard against heroes, or banishing Rox Rose when it hits the grave against Rose Dragon. As a matter of fact, DD Crow won me my rank up game by banishing Elemental Hero Neos. I'm running it at 2 as kind of a balance with BLS. Like BLS, I tried it at 3 copies as well, but I had the same issue where I found it to be too bricky. So I divided the cards into 2 BLS, 2 DD Crow, and I found that to be optimal, consistent, and kind of the best way you can run that staple in this deck. Mystical Space Typhoon. This deck needs back row removal. I didn't want to accept that for the longest time, but in its current state, it can't be trying to play around multiple Book of Moon. So I run MST at 3, but there is a ton of tech options for Burning Abyss, and I'm going to go over some of them that I tried on my climb at the end of the video, but I eventually settled on 3 MST, and yes, Ghost Eagle is running Treacherous Trap Hole. I'm pretty cool with this card now. I still think it's the strongest trap in the game, but I don't think it needs to be banned anymore, and that is because a lot of decks just need this card to keep up. Rose Dragon, Heroes, and Meklords got all these fancy skills and whatnot, and Burning Abyss is no exception to the decks that can't really keep up with this shit. The thing about Tretch is, if you open it, it's more than likely that you're going to use it. The card is almost never dead for any deck that opts to run it. Just make sure you don't have any other traps in your grave, or in my case, in your deck. So that's the main deck, 30 cards and prime to drag your opponent down to the circles of hell for a tea party with the Traveler. Dante goes in. Generic rank 3 light warrior. Soft once per turn, you can detach 1 material from Dante to send the top 1 to 3 cards from your deck to the graveyard. Dante then gains 500 attack for every card sent, and if he does battle this turn, he'll switch himself to defense mode where he has a respectable 2500. Then if Dante hits the grave, like most of the archetype, he's got an effect. Dante's is to add a Burning Abyss monster from your grave to hand, kind of like Sur, where it provides recycling potential, and you could even send another Dante back to your extra deck. He's a real combo starter by milling those cards, proccing effects, setting up the grave, thinning the deck, and he's got recursion. Dante Pass is a popular term for a reason. For BA to go into Dante, mill 3, and pass with maybe a white princess in hand, it doesn't sound like much, but it's a hard board to play through. Because here's the thing, let's say Sir is Dante's only material, and your opponent destroys Dante. Both Dante and Sir's effects will activate, and you can even use them on each other. Special summon Dante right back with Sir's effect, and then add Sir to your hand with Dante's effect? Dante is a front man of this deck. He's the reason we run the bad BAs, because so long as they can special summon themselves and make this dude, we don't care. But maybe Beatrice ain't about all this underworld crap, and she is here to destroy all of the demons, you know, being an angel and all. But don't get it twisted. She's not here to save your opponent. She's looking at them the same way. Generic rank 6 Light Exceed. She can also be summoned by ranking up Dante into her by discarding a Burning Abyss monster. So if you have Dante on the field and a BA in hand, you can always summon Beatrice. Beatrice cannot use her effect the turn that she's summoned if you did this rank up. However, on a quick effect, meaning either player's turn, Beatrice can detach one material to send one card from your deck to grave, any card of your choice. Breakthrough skill, go for it. Kite-Roid, go for it. Activate any Burning Abyss effect, turning Farfa into a quick effect banish, banishing Rock's Rose Dragon before a synchro summon, banishing Elemental Hero Sunrise during the battle phase. You have crazy disruption with Farfa, but you can also do it with Alich, but like I said earlier with Alich, you have to be very keen and accurate with the timing. Then after that, if she lives, you can send another card on your turn and just keep comboing. She has a floating effect too, believe it or not. When she's destroyed and sent to grave by an opponent's effect or attack, you can outright special summon a Burning Abyss monster from your extra deck. Almost always, this will be the level 6 synchro monster Virgil, who can discard a Burning Abyss monster to spin a card, and that is to return a card to the deck. This effect is a soft once per turn. Then on a hard once per turn, if Virgil is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you get to draw a card. And now enter the big problem for the opponent. I summon Dante, pitch Scarm to summon Beatrice, and search Tour Guide during the end phase. I have no hand traps, but I know that I won't be killed. There are just too many layers here, bro. Opponent summons a combo starter, banish it with Farfa. They work back up to destroy Beatrice. Beatrice floats into Virgil. Dante adds back. Sir summons Dante again. You blow up Virgil. Great, I just drew a white princess. Obviously, it doesn't go down like this exactly every time, but Beatrice is difficult to play through is my point. She's definitely the boss monster, even over Dante and BLS, and easy as hell for BA to make. Not to mention, you could just summon a materialist Dante from the grave with Sir's effect and then rank it up into Beatrice. This is why we're fine with just 2 Dante and 2 Beatrice. And another thing about her is, she's not a Burning Abyss monster. So, appropriately so, she will destroy Burning Abyss monsters if they're on the field with her. Sounds like a bad thing until you realize you can take advantage of that. Let's say Farfa's in your hand on your turn. And remember, it's the only one, so we can't send it with Beatrice. You could just normal summon it, and then it will immediately blow itself up because Beatrice is on the field, and then you can banish a card. Or let's say on your opponent's turn, Farfa is already in your grave, so you can't banish. What you can do is send Sir to the graveyard with Beatrice to special summon Farfa from the grave, who will immediately die and his effect will activate. Another reason Sir is a recycling machine and arguably the best main deck monster besides Tour Guide. The Phantom Knights of Breaksword is a unit, as we all know, and really good in Burning Abyss. He is a generic rank 3, so they obviously make him easily. A lot of people like to flip Burning Abyss monsters down with Book of Moon, because if you control a face down monster, it's not a Burning Abyss, so all BAs you summon will just die immediately. However, you can play around Book of Moon with Fiendish Rhino Warrior and Tour Guide. If your opponent flips your first special summoned BA, you can normal summon Rhino and then special summon another BA, since Rhino prevents his destruction, and you have a rank 3 and a face down useless monster. This is where Breaksword comes in. He can turn the flipped monster into a pop or himself into a pop for certain situations for back row or even monsters, because sometimes Farfa's banish isn't enough. However, if your opponent flips your second BA, the first one will die, but then you can normal summon Rhino and summon your third BA or summon Tour Guide, who will negate the BA's effect. Book of Moon is your worst nightmare, but at a higher level of play, BA can deal with the card. Nightmare Shark can attack directly with 2000 teeth, and after some thrown hands from Beatrice or a buffed up Dante, they can easily put the opponent in Shark's range. For the same reason as Breaksword, BA makes this card incredibly easily. Straight finisher that can be paired with Barbar if you need a little more than 2k. Now the skill, a perfect example of one that supports what the deck is doing and isn't what the deck is doing. Mind of the Plana. Once per duel, you can send all of your opponent's banished cards to a different dimension. Where do they go? No one knows, but my bet is Miami. Now look, paired with Farfa, not only does this banish become permanent, it's like giga permanent, like gone from the card catalog levels of permanent. I used this skill at the start of my turn against Crystron to remove from play their banished monsters that they use for synchro materials on my turn, and I felt very dirty about that. But the point is, this is a great skill and makes Farfa as valuable on your turn as it is on your opponent's, since you can't use the skill on your opponent's turn. But it's also not hard to interrupt your opponent with Farfa, then recycle him, banish a card on your turn, and then send it straight to the beach. Alright, so that's the deck, so let's play it. Going first, you want to get Dante out for sure. Ideally Beatrice, but Dante at least. Either way, summon him in defense mode, and because of the way the deck is built with so many materials, it's kind of rare for you not being able to make Dante. You can usually send a Scarm for a tour guide follow-up, either by sending Scarm for the rank up, or sending to grave with Rhino, or you just happen to mill it with Dante. Try to bulk your way through your opponent's turn. Sometimes they open amazing and can sack you easily. It happens, but it's the minority of the time. Or if you got Beatrice out, you can actually interact with your opponent with Farfa or Alich, and plus with her floating effect, I've never been lethaled through a Beatrice in one turn. Even if Black Rose tries to nuke the field, Beatrice being able to banish Roxrose, or even DD Crow banishing Roxrose, just kind of ends it for Rose Dragon. Going second, you can normal that tour guide and make level 3, permanently banish with Farfa, and put up a lot of damage. This is not an OTK deck. I mean, it can be, but generally this deck is playing slower. Again, the opponent is in hell. It's supposed to be agonizing torture, and it certainly is at times trying to play through all these floats. And with BLS or MST in hand, the OTK potential comes through, but there's no shame in playing the grind game until you get what you need. And that is how I played the deck, and I saw a lot of success from it. Free-to-play alternatives. First one, easy enough, 2 Kiteroid. Beatrice can send it directly to grave in desperate situations, and it just further solidifies that grind game and the opponent's inability to OTK. I ran Kiteroid at 1 and 2 copies on the climb, but ultimately dropped him. A player named Wallace actually hit King of Games one day before me, and he was running a 23 card BA deck featuring only 2 Scarm and 2 Fiendish Rhino Warrior. And him, like a lot of BA players, opt to run Book of Moon and or Enemy Controller. You can also run Kagna for more BAs as well as Dragleg. Fiend Griefing is a trap card that only has an R rarity. It can be a substitute for DD Crow and proc a BA effect at the same time. I did run this card occasionally on the climb too. And lastly, I ran a copy of Herald of the Abyss for Yazi for a while on the climb, but it ended up being more useful against Photon Lord, and as I saw Yazi and GE less, I eventually dropped it. I really enjoyed this cog run. I'm a big fan of the archetype, and I have been wanting to do this for a while. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. It was a project for sure, and I will see you guys in my next one.